Abandoned employee property was the first video I uploaded on this channel 4 years ago. This video contains updated information on dealing with employee property left behind. Employees and employers terminate their professional relationships all the time, with layoffs and other forms of terminations taking place over the phone, text messages, and in emails. Employees are bound to leave property behind at your company. What are the legal requirements for employers when dealing with property employees leave behind after termination? As I stated in my very first video on this channel, I have direct experience with employees whose employment was terminated for whatever reason and left behind living room furniture, wall art, small refrigerators, blah, blah, blah. As an employer, what can or should you do with that property? This video is a deep dive into the legal requirements for employers when dealing with property left behind by employees post-termination. Before I go any further, please keep in mind that I am a business operations expert, not an attorney. Please consult with your licensed business attorney if you have any specific questions. I am in Texas. I researched Texas law as well as the state employment agency, the Texas Workforce Commission, and could not find any specific law that talks specifically about what an employer is supposed to do with the personal property left behind by a former employee. With that being said, this doesn't mean that a company or an employee for that matter who finds themselves with property they don't own after termination can do what they want. Keep listening and you'll understand after hearing what information I uncovered. Let's say your employee purchased a refrigerator to be used in the company's break room. Once that employee is no longer working at your company, I highly recommend that you and your employees immediately cease using any and all property owned by that former employee. This includes that refrigerator, the couch, or anything else left behind. If the property is returned damaged or unusable, this could allow that employee to bring litigation against your company. If the former employee left a large piece of property, can your company charge a storage fee and deduct storage fees from a final paycheck? Remember, in the state of Texas, to deduct money of any kind from a paycheck, there should be a wage deduction authorization agreement signed by that employee authorizing this specific type of deduction. Charging storage fees for property left behind by a former employee depends on the laws where your business resides and the agreement signed by your company and that former employee. So to reduce the chance of potential litigation against your company, I recommend the following. If your company does not have some sort of document signed by the employee that specifically says your company is charging a storage fee to keep that property for the former employee, your company should not arbitrarily decide to charge storage fees. How about the opposite? What if the former employee is terminated and has in their possession a company car or a computer? Can the former employee charge your company a storage fee until someone comes to retrieve that car? What if the former employee has the company car towed from their private property? My advice would be for anyone listening to this video is to check the city or state codes for storage fees and towing vehicles where the car is physically parked before arbitrarily billing storage fees to a former company or towing the car or holding an automobile hostage for storage fees or any type of drama like that. Chances are if a former employee does this, that former employee can and probably will be sued for any damages incurred by the former employer. Companies who issue vehicles to employees should have detailed agreements for the care of the vehicle as well as what happens to the vehicle post-termination and if any storage fees can or cannot be collected by the employee post-termination. My recommendation is to save yourself some headache and potential legal trouble by returning all property back to the former employer. If the termination was initiated by the employee, it's possible that the former employee may not have realized property was left behind. If termination was initiated by the company, then the departure of the former employee could have been immediate. Regardless of the reason for termination, the property left behind by the former employee should be carefully collected by senior management and kept in a safe place. This includes the smallest of items like coffee mugs and other breakables. Document the condition of the items in pictures or video, noting the date, time, the individual packaging the items, and any other pertinent information. For example, if the items were stained or damaged prior to packaging, this information should be saved and placed in the former employee's personnel file. Now, as a reference point, I am going to use the Texas Property Code 93.002 guidelines for landlords' removal of a tenant's property. For your company's unique situation, I recommend referring to similar guidelines where your business resides. These are my recommendations, and this is what I've done in the past regarding abandoned employee property items employees leave behind after an employee leaves the company. I recommend allowing up to 60 days for the employee to come and get the property left behind after the date the property was packed up and stored. An exception for this could be if there is some sort of contract or agreement in place that governs the property left behind. Attempt to contact that former employee in writing via text messages or email. Any responses should be copied and stored in the employee's personnel file. What if the employee does not respond or the company does not have up-to-date contact information? That same Texas Property Code states that notices should be delivered by certified mail to the last known address, stating that the property may be disposed of if not claimed within 60 days after the date the property was stored. And to reduce the chance of litigation by a former employee, especially a former employee that may not think favorably of the company, a reasonable effort should be made to contact that employee by any and all means. This includes using the emergency contact information that should be on file. This notification should discuss only 3 topics: what items the employee left behind, a request that the former employee remove their property, and to contact the company's HR department to schedule a day and time to retrieve the abandoned property. Instead of a former employee returning to pick up property left behind post-termination, I highly recommend using a courier service for smaller items. Courier services require a signature from the person who accepts the delivered items. These types of documents should be placed in the former employee's personnel file. If the company's policy is not to have former employees return for any reason, a courier service should be used, again, for smaller property. The expense of a courier service is small compared to an upset former employee who has to return to a company that terminated them. I highly recommend checking the laws in the area where your business resides and maintaining up-to-date employee contact information. If your company is still not clear as to what to do with an employee's abandoned property, it would be best to consult with a licensed employment attorney for more concise answers. Keep in mind that disposing of an employee's abandoned property without following the law in your state may create some financial liability for your company. When in doubt, don't throw it out. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. If you want to know more about business operations, business management, human resources, and other topics related to running a business, click on one of those play links. Click on one of these click on the playlist.
One eternity later.
Click on one of these playlists. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe.